In Contact, a news and public affairs presentation by the Atlanta Association of Black Journalists. And now your host, Angela Robinson.
Good morning. Our conversation this morning, sustainable black communities. What does that mean? What does that look like? Many experts believe being good stewards of our environment can only help our communities thrive and grow. But how do we make the black community environmentally sustainable? We are very proud to welcome George Bandy, Jr., Vice President of Sustainability at Interface Americas, concentrating on global relationships. Mr. Bandy is Chairman of the Board of Directors for the United States Green Building Council. That sounds very large. We're going to find out all about it. We're also very proud to welcome Marcea Lewis, a senior biology pre-med major at Spelman College. Lewis is also one of 4 sustainable Spelman interns for the Spelman College Sustainability Campaign, another very large situation as well. Welcome. You know, I have to say that it's almost getting to be vogue to say this green sustainability thing. But what is it, really? Mm-hmm. And what is your mission with the USGBC that we need to really focus on when we're looking at trying to get our communities environmentally safe, really, lifestyle?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, and thank you for allowing me to be here. But I think sustainability has been something that our culture has embraced for a long time. It's grandmother taking a quilt made from jeans or sheets that had gotten old. So I think that within the communities of color, it's always been something that we've used in a way, recycling, using things more than once, leveraging things in the community, sharing with our neighbors, making sure that our neighbors' well-being and health was consistent, making sure people got back to and from. So I think that things are cyclical. This is almost a cycle, in my opinion, that we're really beginning to look back on the value of community and connectivity and having people have healthy spaces to live, work, and play, and try to create communities that allow people to have spaces outdoors that have good connectivity to the communities that they live in. So the United States Green Building Council is really about looking at what about facilities and buildings where people live and communities where people live, and how do those things become standardized in a way where everyone has a great place to work, live, and play that has good indoor air quality, has responsible drinking water, where people have healthy spaces where they can work and be conducive and productive in a different way. And so we're looking to try to leverage that in the marketplace much more effectively, where it's been a niche type of market. I think that these new criteria where people are beginning to ask the question about, it's really not about the building. It used to be about how do you measure how much energy they saved in that building? How do you measure how much water they saved? It's really about how does that impact the performance of the people in the space?
Yes.
And when you begin to touch that, how does someone come to school and be in a healthier environment at school than they are at home?
Yes.
So that gets into the communities and beginning to ask, what does the affordable community need to have? Why does a grandmother need to choose between paying her light bill and getting her medicine?
You have hit on something I believe in, and I call it Miss Emma.
Absolutely.
Because whatever we do, we've got to make it efficient.
Yes.
It's because it is about our growth and thriving and our lives.
Absolutely.
Healthy living in a very holistic way in many, many things. But if we are going to transform that community where Miss Emma is, instead of transporting Miss Emma out, you see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Then we've got to look at the food, the space, the school, the gardens, the grocery store. So how do we engage our communities to make sure that Miss Emma can enjoy all of this loveliness that you're talking about, and that it is affordable for her to live a healthy life?
Absolutely. And so those are some of the things that are becoming. So it starts with education. Right. So last year was the first time I had the opportunity to meet with and speak at the National Organization of Minority Architects, where communities of color are beginning to engage in this big, quote-unquote, thing called sustainability and really begin to understand, what does that mean for affordable housing, and how do we begin to leverage that? It's not just putting a park in a neighborhood or making sure there's a grocery store there, but it's planning a community that provides all the needed resources for those communities and the people in those communities. And how do you connect those things to make sure that people have access to all of these different things? We live in a society that should allow and facilitate that type of behavior. So what the United States Green Building Council wants to do is begin to ask the question of, here's a framework to think about how a sustainable community should look. And how do you begin to implement that in ways so people can actually receive that? And leveraging not just the stuff that is right there in the community, but thinking about why has it been one of those things where landfills were looked upon as a bad thing, or these things are looked upon as a bad thing? Now, those are the rich communities where people want to go because you can tap the landfill and use that energy.
Yeah, but you've got to do that whole education piece because
Absolutely.
9 times out of 9, when you want to do a landfill or a dump, you're putting it in our community and you're not using the goodness of that. But he gave us a perfect segue, did he not, Marcea, to education and what the phenomenal women at Spelman always do phenomenal things.
Oh.
But this, it is amazing, isn't it? It's, you have a sustainable Spelman student program. You're an intern at a conference. What's happening with that? Tell us about that.
Well, what we try to really focus on is educating our students so that when they go out into these different internships or volunteer opportunities, they're able to educate those students or those people that they have those connections with and show them that there are ways for them to be sustainable as well. So we just try to show our girls that simple ways that they can change their life, like turning off the light or unplugging their phone chargers when they leave their room for class, are simple ways that they can be more sustainable if they're on campus. And they take those lessons and take them out into the communities that they volunteer in. So I think that that's what we really focus on with Sustainable Spelman, is making sure that we have our girls go out after they graduate and have these practices of everyday sustainability.
Okay, but while you're in the school, though, Spelman is doing some things because you are concerned about your footprint of the food and the ways you live. And I think you have a dorm that's green-friendly dorm, right?
Yes, we do.
It's all a part of it. Can you talk a little bit about your climate action plan, because it all ties into what I'm hearing George say about our communities, and you know how that all impacts the literacy, environmental literacy, if you will, and what's happening to your curriculum.
So, well, let me start with our building.
It's big. I know I gave you a whole lot.
So the Suites building is actually the first residence hall on any HBCU campus, and actually the 5th building on any HBCU campus that's LEED certified. So,
and what does that mean?
It means that it's, in layman's terms, it's just sustainable. So it has toilets that use less water than a normal toilet will. Right. Lights and light bulbs that gradually turn on, saving more energy than just flicking on and off. Like George, Mr. Bandy has his interface carpeting, which is sustainable in a way that it uses recycled goods. And I know that Art has told me about the fishing nets that they use as the backing of some of his carpets that are recycled from the oceans. So it's just a place where people are able to live sustainably without even really knowing it.
So LEED is a USGBC acronym. It means Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. And so what it focuses on is how do you create criteria to create a building that's healthier so people can learn in the space.
Yes.
So the space is easily adaptable for them to be able to look at things that are going on around them and have impact on them in terms of indoor air quality, that they're feeling better inside of the space. With so many people having asthma and issues related to that, how do you purify that air so that people feel comfortable? Having recycled content, which drives the marketplace.
Yes.
And you were talking about driving the market down. So the more and more you have these buildings, then the manufacturers begin to make these things readily accessible because the community is asking for them. So how do you get lights that are a little bit more effective inside of homes? How do you get things absolutely?
Right,
how do you,
cost effective.
The 2 things I would recommend, like if you're asking me, like, what's the bare bones thing that you would look at? A caulk gun, number 1.
Okay.
Sealing up cracks in the house where you can actually keep the hot air and the cold air from going in and out of your home. So that's the number 1
and
thing.
And the fancy term, the winterization,
Absolutely.
the
weatherization of your home is really easy.
Makes a difference.
And looking at things like how do you seal up your home more effectively to begin to make sure that you have that. And looking at the things within your home, changing out light bulbs, maybe going from the compact fluorescent bulbs to looking at more of a more efficient bulb, an LED bulb or something like that, to that lasts a lot longer. You only got to buy it one time rather than having to keep replacing it.
So that saves money as well.
Absolutely.
How do you you've got to be happy and proud when you hear this wonderful young lady and students like Marcea at Spelman and colleges, particularly HBCUs, doing this work. Do you really have you had a chance to see, and do you have some tangible results that is really getting to your generation that this is what we need to do to save save our environment, to be sustainable? Sincerely, honestly?
Honestly,
And then just not going through this thing at Spelman right now?
I'm not going to say no, but I'm going to say that we're still working on it.
She's a great
because
politician.
She's good.
She's very good. Go ahead.
a lot of the girls on campus don't feel like they need to live sustainably. I think that's what we struggle with now is that simple things that they can do, they can live that sustainable life and practice these things for the rest of their lives. So I think that's what we have to try to get to them, and that's what we struggle with because, of course, we're not, let's say, a party or an organization that's more popular on campus.
Sure.
But I think that's what we struggle with the most is just getting that attention and showing that these that they can lead a sustainable life.
And it can work.
Mm-hmm.
And if we show people you can save money when they come out of college and they're on their own, you see what I'm saying? And then I would think part of the key is to spread it to their peers and even help families in their communities.
Absolutely. Two things. One is that education, higher education, and K through 12 is really driving the desire for this next, what I'm calling transitional marketplace group. The Center for Green Schools is providing a lot of resources to education and creating atmospheres where students are beginning to learn about sustainability at a very, very early age now, and they're asking difficult questions of their parents.
Oh, great.
And the parents are having to address some of these issues, like, why don't we do this at home? I mean, why don't we have this type of light bulb? Or why don't we have this type of toilet in our home? And they begin to ask these questions. And so what it's also driving is like the college students, as they leave that marketplace, the companies are beginning to beginning to ask for thinkers that are holistic in their thinking, asking for sustainable.
Which ripples effects into work and jobs, so it can go hand in hand. It can work.
Open city, state.
Open doors, yes.
It provides you with a different kind of set of glasses, so to speak. Your eyes are opened up to being able to think holistically. So it's not just about the energy reduction or the water reduction, but what does that mean in terms of productivity, retention of talent, attraction of talent, for both colleges, universities, and companies and cities and states.
And basic stuff, how I can keep money in my pocket, how I can get a job.
Absolutely.
Basic stuff. This is a very interesting book, Explosion Green. Someone gave it to me, David Godfrey, who writes, and I've just looked at a portion of it. You're familiar with it, George. Some interesting points. Just want to share, he says, the foreword in this by Mr. Paul Hawkins. It says, quote, sustainability is about the relationship between the two most complex systems on Earth, human and living. So if we can make that tie together, I also just want to share, this is something else I thought was great. If this movement toward a green and just world is to succeed, it will be because we will build a more interesting sandbox for everyone to play in. That's what I need to understand. As we're building this more interesting sandbox for everyone to play in, how do we engage our community, especially when there's a mother, a father, a grandmother somewhere just trying to get a meal on the table and get their child to school? You rolling up on them saying, and if you can get energy, this is not going
to work.
So what do we do to save our communities and to make sure that all that's happening at Spelman translates out? But both of you all can chime in.
There are a couple of things. I think that there are organizations in place in the community like the South Face Energy Institute. Tons of resources readily available to the community. The local chapter of the United States Green Building Council, they always have events and they host people to come in and learn some of these things. But there are also organizations within the city. The city has hired someone to focus on sustainability within their organization. The Atlanta Chamber of Commerce also has a sustainability-focused committee. But I think that where you're going to really begin to see the transition is when you begin to see affordable housing begin to implement sustainability, but not just implement it, but also use it as an educational platform for the people who occupy the space. Not just that your energy bill was reduced, but why it was reduced.
Thank you.
And the value of that. Exactly.
And just because we have these things, then we have to make sure people know about these things. Atlanta just put out Atlanta's transforming through the commitment of different participants. This is like their annual report of all the different environmentalist things we're doing. But you can have a great product if you don't tell anybody. You don't know or see how you can fit in. So that's got to be part of the challenge as well as convincing your peers.
It is. Tie along with what George said, there's an organization called Green and Youth that goes into a lot of these after-school programs with young children from first grade all the way up to the last year of high school, and they go in and educate those students so that when they do go home, they could tell their parents, this is what I learned today. We could be doing this. It's really easy, and they told me how I could do it. Other ways are having a community garden and seeing how their changes in life could flourish right before their eyes. So I think that education, again, is the key.
Always.
But in different venues, just like how George said, they could be seeing this on their bills, their children, who they learn from every day, and might be more educated than them when
parents,
they come home.
Right.
Will come home and teach them so that they'll have these new things to go along with that bill that they have seen with the lower prices from the sustainability practices that have been implemented.
Were you this sustainably aware before the Spelman College? How did you care about that piece of paper that you need to recycle?
Oh, I did care about it. My dad recycles so much at home. It's
great.
He actually gets a little upset when we do not, if we don't wash out that can and put it in the recycling and just throw it in the trash can. But once I did become a sustainability intern, it really opened my eyes to a lot of things that I did not know, like interface, the company interface, that I didn't even know about before Art Fraser told me about that. So it's something that is needed, I will say, that this education to know more about your environment that you live in every day and that you are affected by and that you affect every day. So I think that it's one of the most important things you can have next to higher education is having that awareness of sustainability and being green.
It's your livelihood. It's survival. What are we doing globally? How do we connect us, this community, with the entire diaspora? And what's that about?
I think that there's two big points. One is that for so long we've tried to live disconnected from nature.
Yes.
We tried
when for years we're going to take you down
memory lane.
A little bit. I'm older than George and so on and so forth. But as you say that, I'm going to let you finish. We've tried to disconnect ourselves from everything that we cherish.
Absolutely.
I said earlier, I cannot remember a time my grandmother going to the grocery store to buy vegetables. She just went in the backyard, picked the tomatoes, picked the beans, picked this.
Absolutely.
But go ahead.
And so we've tried to disconnect ourselves from nature. And in doing so, we've lost context of really being connected to nature. Nature is a part of us. And
it goes back to legacy, like you said.
Absolutely. And I think that is the connecting piece that connects us all globally. All people need nature. We breathe out carbon dioxide. Nature takes that and turns it into oxygen, what we need.
Yes.
Those are things that we are inalienable rights. People should have good health, should have safe drinking water. I always tell this interesting story. The first time my grandmother knocked over a bottle of water, and she had glaucoma. She couldn't see really well. And she said, I'm sorry I knocked over your soda. And I tell her, no, Granny, that's just a bottle of water. And she said, all the schooling for we paid for that young man, and somebody sold him a bottle of water. It didn't connect for her. That was not in her reality sphere.
Right.
So I think that the more and more we look at this, it is about designing within the means of nature rather than apart from it. And so you begin to ask those questions. What does that drive? She talked about some of the products and solutions that are used inside of the facilities. But for so long, manufacturers did the make, waste. Where did the waste go? We talked about it earlier.
Yes.
Somebody's landfill.
That's right. That's right.
Well, that's not a model that manufacturers should undertake. It should be like nature's model. Nature, there is no way. So manufacturers need to, products that we create, we can bring them back in and turn them back into products. And that's a different type of model that's being created by this market shift. And these are all being asked by customers. The customers are asking us, what are you doing for the environment?
And on another global hitch to it, you've traveled. I've been blessed to travel, especially on the continent. And in Kenya, with the Maasai tribe, they use nothing is waste. Nothing is waste.
They don't even use the word.
They don't. and living fabulously and doing just fine. And we could get back to that legacy and that connection. Do you ever think, Marcea, as your generation and as you pass it on to the next generation, that this will be as automatic as your generation now not even knowing what an album is about? You don't even know about taking down notes because everything is. You see what I'm saying? And I'm not being rude or offensive, but it needs to be. You know what I mean? It's so automatic. And not only do you not know what an album is, you all don't even want to know what an album is. Well, do you think of that will pass and we'll just be green? green will be the new black, or black will be the new green, or whatever.
I think so.
You know what I'm saying?
I think it'll pass.
Yeah.
It'll become second nature eventually. Like I said, the majority of the girls that live in some of these residence halls that are LEED certified don't even realize that they're making such an impact. So I think that it'll become second nature, and eventually people will realize that they're making much more of an impact. In our buildings, we have little plaques everywhere that explains how this room is making more of a difference, or how this room or this bathroom is more sustainable than one in one of our older dorms. So if you're standing around and reading that, you'll eventually figure that out, that you're making that difference, and you'll tell it to somebody else who might not have noticed before. So I think with the education of the younger ones, and then just the awareness that you might eventually get, it'll become second nature.
It'll become second nature.
I think
and that's what you're looking for.
What you talked about, screen one will get us there. Because that's what is screen one. It's whatever your mobile device is.
Yes.
I think that the apps that are readily available now around sustainability, when you do guided tours and they talk about the sustainable, these things are going to become so readily available, and information will be transposed to you. It will be easy to ascertain information. People now monitor and measure how they make choices about what they purchase based upon applications inside of their phone. Right. They will make the same decisions on buildings and schools that they go to and places that they want to work. You know, like when I came out of school, you went to the first job you could get. Yeah. These students now come out and say, you know what? I'm going to go to work to interface to understand sustainability. Then I'll go to a place like Wells Fargo.
Or George, they come into school with businesses already on their own. They come out entrepreneurs.
And then they come out.
Right, but
startups.
we still want startups. You're right,
Absolutely.
But I still want to make sure that while we're doing that, and understand that, I'm going to go back to my favorite person, Miss Emma, because Miss Emma might not have that app. We need to make sure whatever we're infusing in there, that she is still sustainable and can still live a very healthy life and help. I'm not saying you're going to change her at 80 or completely around, but you still got to give.
Absolutely.
You see what I'm saying?
I find that the seniors are more connected to the children than the people in the middle.
Right.
And
I'm the one that's not getting it, and the Emma's doing fine. I'm with you. I'm clear.
Because during that era, it was.
They had a garden.
If you go into, and I always like to share this with people, if you go into communities where resources are very minimal,
we find a way.
They find a way to recycle, and it is sustainable.
Right.
Because they have to be. They use things over and over again because it's a necessity, and that's anywhere globally. But I think that where communities are plentiful, that's where we get a little bit more arrogant, and we're not.
Because we want everything like this, don't we, Marcea? We want everything fast-paced. That's your generation. Can't wait, can't do this. We're not even spelling anymore. We just use you and two and all of that. Do you think part of the Spelman program, and we so applaud what Spelman is doing, will also, it is, and there are a lot of HBCUs, they're doing some great stuff, will stretch overseas so that you go throughout the diaspora and do some other work?
Oh, yes. A lot of our students do a lot of study abroad programs, and actually one of our other interns was in New Zealand this summer, Asia, and she, even though I don't know exactly what she was doing there, I know that always she is representing sustainable Spelman in every way. I live more sustainably now because of what I've learned with sustainable Spelman. So I know that she herself implements that when she goes to these other places. And Kendall and Ruth, who was in Germany, like always, we're always representing and trying to leave that mark.
And learn something from there.
Right. Always, as is any of our students that go somewhere else. So if we could just get over that obstacle of teaching them that they could be more sustainable, so that when they do go out into these different companies and different countries around the world, already we're making an impact just by being Spelman students and Spelman graduates and having that. But once we have that sustainability underlying
everything that you do,
once we get that in there and we could teach that over there, I mean, it just pushes forward more so what we're already doing.
It can turn it around. George, if we don't do this seriously and engage the black community on all levels, no matter where we are, and I've got a little bit of time left, what is going to happen in our places and spaces in our black community?
Placing the young generation at risk. because this is a trend that allows them to be able to flourish really successfully in a lot of different ways. I think that the other opportunity that I'm beginning to see actually occur is that when you make the connection between young people's minds being open to much more connectivity to what nature provides, no one, if you ask someone, like, where are you most creative and innovative and thoughtful, no one's going to say at a desk behind a cubicle. They're going to say outside, at the beach, in the park. They're going to connect with something outdoors. And so how do you provide that type of stimulation for someone to be creative and innovative, to allow them to connect and be able to provide a connectivity to nature and connect, like Paul said inside of his quote there, is how do you, that's universal language. And people speak about it. If you think of Native Americans saying that we need to be thinking about things 7 generations down the road. Like all of those quotes come from people who had very minimal resources, but they knew the value of being connected to nature.
Right. I just want to share, as we're getting ready to close, as we're looking at environmental justice and some research I found, the environmentalist Naomi Davis. She's based in Chicago. And I know Chicago is near and dear to your heart. And she basically said, you know, we have this great cultural legacy of stewardship of the land. We've turned away from it. It's time to turn back. And I think that's part of what we're saying, and that we can turn back in our own places and spaces. You can start with your light bulbs. They're going to build some better housing. You all are educating, and I just think it's phenomenal what you're doing. Just phenomenal. But if we all did our little part, we're one of the few cities that actually will give you a container to place your stuff in it and just roll it out to your curb. What'd you say?
And they'll take it.
And they'll take it. Yes, they'll take it. So we can all start in those places and spaces, and we have a fighting chance.
Awesome.
It's time for us to have that green. Thank you so much for being with us and sharing. And all the best to you this year. Pre-med, changing the world. Marcea Lewis, you're wonderful.
Awesome.
Beautiful. It's awesome. Yes, George, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Yes, ma'am.
We want to thank everyone for joining us. As always, we're in contact with you. You be in contact with us. We will see you the next time. For a copy of the show, please send $40 to the Atlanta Association of Black Journalists, P.O. Box 42566, Atlanta, Georgia 30311. Provide your name, mailing address, phone number, and name of the show requested. Make all checks payable to AABJ.